What's up, upstanders? Dr. O here, and I gotta say that, man, like, remember how long it took for so many outlets within the media spaces to call Donald Trump a liar? It took them like years. I mean, many of us in places like Urban View, we were doing that for a while. I mean, but the CNN, MSNBCs, they'll say some untruths or misrepresented, like all of that stuff. But and just finally, like within their second term, that some within these spaces are actually saying what he's saying is an actual lie. I'm seeing the same thing right now with this conversations about a constitutional crisis. Like every week, I'm seeing something. If this happens, then we're really going to be in a constitutional crisis, and then it happens. If this happens, it's going to be in a constitutional crisis, and it happens. If this happens, it's going to be in a constitution. Every week, we talk about we might be heading towards a constitutional crisis. We've been in a constitutional crisis since this man took office the first time. Why won't people talk about that? We can talk about everything from abuses of the Hatch Act to the way that the surveillance programs he was trying to do the first time around, the way that he targets, the press, he targeted him the first time around as well. Why are people waiting to call something a constitutional crisis? There's no dictionary definition of the date and time a constitutional crisis is going to happen. Look what's happening right now with Mahmoud Khalil. Look what's happening with the professor from Brown University who they deported as well, Dr. Rasha Alouye. And what are they saying? Look what's happening with these Venezuelan individuals who were deported. Oh, they were already in the air when the judge said turn it around. They were already passed out of jurisdiction, U.S., which wasn't true for all of the planes. With Dr. Alloway, they said, oh, we didn't get the notice in time before she was deported to Lebanon. Like, these are lies. And oh well, once they start disobeying the judges, then we're in a constitutional crisis. What about all of those people who got told to return to work by the judge last week? Have they returned to work? Has a process been made? Some of them have been getting notices saying to report to like an empty subway shop, restaurant, like a closed subway shop. Report there for duty. There'll be a desk there for you. They've been told to report to other people's homes and places they don't even know. Like directions to like empty lots. Go back to work there. Have all of these thousands of employees to return to work? No. Has a process fully been developed for them to return to work? No. Does that also mean that Trump is disregarding judges? Yes. Favorite president was Andrew Jackson. Remember Trail of Tears, Basically said, how they going to enforce what's happening as it relates to protecting these indigenous lands. But the fact of the matter is the media, so many people in these media spaces want to spend more time debating on when a constitutional crisis starts than actually deal with the things that challenge the Constitution. The man speaking after the Department of Justice, telling them to go after his critics. What do we have to wait till like the Department of Justice actually goes after somebody and incarcerates them and so then it's a constitutional crisis? When was the last time Trump even mentioned the Constitution in an actual speech, in an actual talk? He just says things are illegal for what people are doing against him. These media heads are wasting time. We've been in a constitutional crisis. And even if you don't want to say that we've been in a constitutional crisis for as long as I've said it's been, maybe, how about January 6th? How about that? How about everything Trump ran on? The man has always challenged judges. And this idea, well, he's just going to go through the appeals process till it gets to the Supreme Court. These guys who are being deported are already gone. And people in Venezuela, people don't even know who they are. Sent to countries that were not theirs, possibly because of some tattoos. We're already in a constitutional crisis. We've been in a constitutional crisis. But even if you don't use the term constitutional crisis, what difference does that make? Because if you finally decide, maybe in the third year of Trump 2.0, that we're in a constitutional crisis, then what are you proposing? What are you suggesting? Like, you got this grand, y'all in the media, and y'all politicians who are afraid to use the term, and y'all lawyers who are afraid to use the term, do y'all got some grand plan, some grand thing that you're going to unwrap and just whip out, once the constitutional crisis is finally declared? No, you don't. All you're going to say is, we are finally in a step, we're in a constitutional crisis. Next story, let's look at the weather. Like, where's the action? Where's the plan? The sooner folks can admit to what's going on, the sooner it can be challenged and fought. So I applaud all the people out there in the streets fighting. I applaud all of the people out there, who are in the political spaces fighting, the organizations, the leadership, the young people, the students. This country right now, this government is literally in. And there's another student from the West Bank, I believe, stories coming out, who's being taken away and deported for the rallies last week for Mahmoud Khalil, and she wasn't even at the rallies. People are being kidnapped and disappeared. Is that not a constitutional crisis? Freedom of speech under assault. Is that not a constitutional crisis? Stop waiting like y'all did for years before to talk about, the lies, or prevarications and all of this other type of stuff. Call a thing a thing. We are in a constitutional crisis. The man is already defying judges. And just because he hasn't said, no, I'm not going to do that, that's what you're waiting for before you decide that we're in a constitutional crisis. Get a grip on reality. Wake up and see what's happening. It's disgraceful. It's despicable. Families are being destroyed. You see the video of Khalil being arrested and his wife asking questions and they're running away from her, not answering the lawyer's questions. Like, what do you call that? What do you call that? Is this country going to believe in the Constitution or not? We know that, he ran on a campaign talking about being lawless and Kamala Harris had to be flawless. This is absolutely ridiculous. The world, turning things over to an unelected bureaucrat in Elon Musk, that people kind of want to not really give him full responsibility because they'll say, well, he's the richest man in the world. So, what I'm saying? So what? Like, what does that have to do with anything? So once again, we're seeing these media folks out here refuse to want to label a thing, while Trump continues to run over every single judge's order. I can't think of an order that he's been told to, respond to since he's been president again that he's listened to. He either goes through the appeals process, which is his right, fine, and we know he's going to try to appeal everything up to the Supreme Court as possible. But some of these other ones, they're just outright not listening to. And then, Marco Rubio, responded to a tweet from the president of El Salvador when he's like, oopsie, too late. And Marco Rubio thinks that's funny. Like, for real? So people got to wake up. People got to wake up. We've been in a constitutional crisis. And even if you don't use that language, whatever language you want to use is that. The fight has to continue now before you're next. And don't think it can't be you. Don't think it can't be you. With this Justice Department that's fully under Trump, with this FBI that's fully under Trump, just say the wrong thing. Why not fight it now? We are in a constitutional crisis. We've been in a constitutional crisis. And it's time for Americans to stand up, be upstanders and not bystanders, and respond accordingly to save this country. Are you in or are you out? Because right now you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Because your silence is compliance. I hope you're choosing to be an upstander. And that includes y'all in the media as well. Peace.